After playing that terribly crap game Resident Evil Survivor, I really just wanted to play a game that I could just chill out, relax to, and take me down memory lane for a while. So I decided to pull out this classic, and really is a personal favourite of mine for the PlayStation 1 console. So let's take a look at it. Here's Moto Racer for the PlayStation 1. Here's a little tale though before we get into this one. It was actually one of the first games I owned for the system. I remember going to get the PS1 with my dad. We got 3 games when we first got it too. Them being FIFA 99, Spyro the Dragon and Moto Racer, which I still own all 3 to this day. So this game is a bit nostalgic for me, but I'll never let that get in the way when I do these videos. Anyways, Moto Racer is a motorcycle arcade style racer released for the PlayStation 1 in 1997. It might be worth noting it originally came out for Windows a couple of months prior to the PlayStation release. Developed by Delphine Software International, who were most famous for developing games such as Another World, Flashback and Prince of Persia, which people now still speak highly of. But don't forget, they are also responsible for Shaq Fu, so you've got to take the good with the bad, I suppose. Come on people, Shaq Fu is not as bad as you think it is. Moto Racer was originally meant to be published by a company called BMG Interactive, but they shut down and would eventually become a part of what Rockstar Games would later become. When BMG Interactive shut down, they sold their publication rights to Electronic Arts, whose back catalogue and history speaks for itself, so I won't bore you with that. Upon starting the game, you're brought to the main menu. From here you choose 1 or 2 player and the difficulty setting. I'll be going with medium here because it's been a while since I've played this game. You then choose what mode you want to play. We'll be going for championship mode here. I love the manual's description for this. The championship is what separates the fast guys from the wannabes. You then select the first course available and now you're brought to the bike selection screen. There is a nice selection of bikes to choose from with their own individual strengths and weaknesses which are displayed in the graph. Play a track with each one and I'm sure you'll find the one that suits you best. Gameplay is exactly what you'd expect from a racer of its time. Nice and simple. With the default control settings, you press X to accelerate, square for braking, and the D-pad to control direction. Easy as that. You can also pull off wheelies by holding down R2, which gives you a speed boost that can really come in handy when you're on a long stretch. Be careful though, if you hit another player while doing a wheelie it'll send you flying off your bike. There is also the option to change camera angles, but I just stick with the default angle seen on screen. I don't know, but I feel sick when going into first person views with racers, especially with older games anyway. You can also view what's going on behind you by pressing the triangle button, but I couldn't have done it at a worse time. I got severe motion sickness just from that little clip there. With it being an arcade style racer, there are checkpoints, but I feel they're a tad generous with either the amount of time they give when passing one or how frequent they're spread out across the tracks. So if you're new to this game, I wouldn't worry about running out of time. It is a fairly short game to complete with only 10 tracks to race on, but if you complete the game you unlock reverse mode, which has you replay the same tracks again but in reverse, so I suppose you could argue that there are 20 tracks all in. Once you have completed reverse mode, you unlock miniature versions of the bikes to race with, a nice little added bonus that. Each track sees you racing across different locations and terrain, and with each track depending on its location you'll be given a different type of bike. For example, if you're racing in the dirt arena with its large jumps and muddy surroundings, you'll be taking control of a dirt bike. And if you'll be racing mostly on solid ground, you'll be in control of a sports bike, mixing it up with each track so it doesn't get too repetitive. Speaking of large jumps, there will be a few courses you play through where you will get big airtime. Landing isn't a problem as long as you're on the track, but if you rear off to the side while landing, you'll either crash and fall off your bike or in some cases bounce all over the place. All my years playing this and I can't really explain why this happens, but I do get a good laugh when it does. While getting some air you can pull off special stunt moves. Just tap R2 and your driver will do some interesting looking poses on the bike. Each track presents its own difficulties, whether it be tight cornering or narrow passageways. They all stand out from one another and I can't think of one course I don't enjoy playing. Now this is one thing that stands out for me, and that is the game's soundtrack. Upon starting you're hit with a great sounding funk guitar riff with some sweet soloing eventually added on top. It just screams early racing on the PS1 for me. Incredible work done by its music composer Rafael Gascua, I think that's how you say it, who had done a lot of soundtracks for other games including Shaq Fu, funnily enough. It may get hate, but you cannot deny this is an absolute banger. But personally, I think his work on the soundtrack for Moto Racer is his Sgt. Pepper's. Each racing track has its own song complementing its location. Like when you're flying down the track and taking in the sights in Speed Babe by the beach with that great sounding guitar. Also, racing along the scenic track in the Rock Forest course. Great sounding guitar once again, accompanied by an organ of all things this time to get your adrenaline boosted. The course Westway also has a brilliant theme, again with a heavy guitar riff with a lot of solos. Don't know why, but motorbikes and guitar solos just seem to go hand in hand for me. There's a little bit of something for everyone though. The course The Great Wall, which sees you race across the Great Wall of China, has a brilliant dance track. I'm a sucker for 90s dance tunes, so they reeled me in easy with this one. I'm not gonna lie though, there are one or two songs that are weak compared to the previous ones I have mentioned. They do help get a feel for the courses they are played on, but don't do much for me. Apart from that, you're getting a great soundtrack that helps add to the high octane intensity seen on screen. The sound effects your bike makes too are also great. Different sounds for the two different styled bikes you'll be handling, so that's a nice touch. And it also wouldn't be a 90s arcade style racer without some incredibly over the top cheesy commentating. This guy has a line for everything you do. You cross a checkpoint, you get a new lap record. I absolutely love it. Moto Racer really stands out from other racers at the time, with the likes of Toca Touring and Gran Turismo taking a more realistic take on the modern racing game at the time. You also had games like Wipeout being set in the future and a bit over the top. Moto Racer being the only second motorbike game for the system coming out after Road Rash, which was a brilliant over the top fun game too. Moto Racer just went back to basics and made a really fun arcade style racer while still making it a slight bit more realistic, which the system hadn't seen up to this point, and it was received very well at the time by players and critics. Scoring high marks all across the board at the time, but for some reason it's just a game now that you hardly hear anyone ever speak of. It spawned many sequels after the success of this one. A year later we would get Moto Racer 2 for the PS1, which was also a great entry into the series. And I've only just realised while researching for this video there was a third game entitled Moto Racer World Tour, so I'll need to hunt for that to give it a bash sometime. A few other titles would follow, mainly for handheld consoles, which just like Moto Racer World Tour, I was completely oblivious to, so I better get hunting for some of these games because I really want to try them out. Right, well that wraps up my review of Moto Racer for the PlayStation 1 console. If you haven't already, I would really suggest you giving it a bash yourself. It really is, at least for me anyway, a classic. And I find it weird that, you know, when people talk about the PlayStation 1 and racing games in particular, this one never seems to get brought up. I have no idea why, but I guess that's just the way it is. Anyway, if you enjoyed, please subscribe to my channel to be kept up to date with future content I upload, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.